Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name's Johanna, and I'll be your host for today. And we've got Flynn helping us out in the chat. But of course, before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we live, create, and learn on today, paying respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, you may have noticed that we were live yesterday and are live again today. We had some technical difficulties yesterday, but we are back better than ever for an even longer stream today with, of course, the wonderful Yori Narpati. How are you doing today, Yori?
Hi everyone. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Flynn. So happy to be back here on Adobe Live. As you guys know, we had to stop yesterday's stream, but I'm so glad to be back here to finish it today. Maybe just a quick introduction.
Absolutely, yeah. Reintroduce yourself, introduce yourself. I'd love to see your work on your website and Instagram as well.
Of course, thank you, Joanna. My name is Yori, and I'm a freelance concept artist and illustrator. I'm based in Jakarta, and I mainly do concept art work like character designs, background painting as well, and also book illustrations. So I'll just go through them very quickly. So this is the kind of work that I usually do. So I do a lot of very vibrant colors, just like background design. I've also done some production work on some TV shows.
Hey, Fiona and Cake.
I
I was
think
saying, yeah, just got one
really
today.
scroll down. Yeah, so I got a chance to work on Lego Monkey Kid as well. I think about 2 years ago.
Amazing.
So
As an
yeah,
avid Lego fan, I am just screaming internally right now. You can't see it anywhere here, I don't think. But I do have a couple of Lego sets in the apartment, so this is very exciting for me.
So yeah, this was mainly for season 4, and I also got a chance to do some designs for Fiona and Cake. Only the first episode, but it was a lot of fun to join the team for a little bit. Yeah, and I can show some of my personal work as well. So I just really enjoy using like very clean shapes and a lot of vibrant colors. So things like this.
Gorgeous. I mean, what else can you say but just gorgeous, gorgeous.
You're very kind. And also occasionally do some character designs as well. So I like to play around with shapes and just kind of like really exaggerate some of them. So yeah.
Fantastic. That actually, with the shape language and character design, brings us into the topic of today's stream, of course, which is character design, illustration techniques, and brush mastery is the title of today's stream. So everyone in chat, of course, welcome to Jason, Alessandra, and Flynn, of course, helping us with modding. And I'm just scrolling to see if there's anyone else that I've missed. No, that's it so far. Welcome, and if you have any questions for Yori about character illustration or working on film projects, TV projects, or anything like that, feel free to post it in the chat either on Behance or on YouTube, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along.
Sounds good. Alrighty, so in honor of Earth Day, I've decided to do this piece of illustration. So it's kind of like a mix of, I guess, all the things that I love to do, which is like background painting and character design as well. So we'll be talking a little bit about all those things today. So maybe before we start, I probably should kind of like explain the story behind this piece of illustration. So this is actually based on the Greek myth of Demeter and Persephone. And maybe for some of you who might not know about the story, I can just give you like a very quick synopsis. So basically, the story goes that Demeter is the goddess of harvest, the goddess of nature, and Persephone is the goddess of spring. And one day, as Persephone was picking flowers in the meadow, the earth opened up, and out comes Hades in his chariot to kidnap Persephone and to take her back to the underworld and make her his wife. Horrible, but And Demeter didn't know that this had happened, and she basically mourns her daughter because she was missing, and the earth kind of like died and withered with her because she was very sad. And Zeus had to intervene, and he basically told her that Hades had taken her daughter. And so Demeter went to the underworld and demanded that they return her daughter back to Earth. And unfortunately, Persephone had already eaten a couple of pomegranate seeds, and she wasn't able to go
Oh,
back and live amongst the gods and the humans for all year round. And so she has to spend half the year in the underworld and the other half year on Earth. And so whenever she's in the underworld, the meter mourns, and so the earth grows cold and sad. And that's kind of like that's the story of how the changing of seasons came to be. So it's like autumn and winter, and like spring and summer is whenever her daughter is, back on Earth with her, and she's overjoyed and happy. And so this image is kind of like a depiction of the meter just like bringing back spring after long months of autumn and winter. So that's kind of like the story behind it. Yeah.
it's a really touching story and perfectly surmised
Thank you.
in this little recap of a recap. Question just right off the bat before we continue, do you usually base your illustrations on stories like these? Obviously this is to commemorate Earth Day, which I believe is on the 22nd of April. But outside of that, is this something that you incorporate often into your work?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think having like a story is always good to kind of like help you, think about what you want to draw. Like if you're really stuck, I like to kind of like go through maybe like books or just like, myths or what fairy tales, things like that, to help kind of like think about what I want to do when I'm really stuck for ideas. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's a great tip for anyone ever going through art block. And I have to just reiterate a comment here from Alessandra saying, wow, amazing artwork.
Thank you.
3 exclamation marks. And I don't know, 3 exclamation marks is quite enough, but I agree. It's amazing artwork.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you. So shall we continue on?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of like section this into 2 parts. So like the first would be talking about the illustration, and then the second would be talking about the character design, and then we'll move on and actually do the demo for the piece of illustration. So just gonna, alrighty. So whenever I start anything, would be it a character design or illustration or background painting, I always start with research. And I always try to collect as many images as possible and collect it in one place. So that could be like a folder on your computer, it could be a Pinterest board, or whatever it is you use to collect your images. And the reason for this is that you need to kind of like have an image bank in your head of just everything that you enjoy looking at. So it could be like other people's art, it could be photographs. So in this case, I've collected several like compositions that I really enjoy. So I really like how in these 3 images the subject matter is the one that's like the brightest, so it really captures your attention. And also I really like the style of this particular artist. Her name's Kat Sai, and also Elioli. I love how they use colors in their work, and also how they use the brushes. And I want to try to kind of implement that into my work as well. And on the top right is just some of my personal work, and on the bottom is just some book covers that I enjoy. So I thought it would be good to try kind of like just have as many images in my brain before I start, and then I'll try to kind of combine them together and create something new. I think I've said this a lot before. I feel like a lot of people think that referencing is kind of a taboo, that you're like copying, but I don't think that's the case. I feel like if you're like having a difficult time trying to come up with something, just try to have as many things as an input, and then you can come up with something new as like a remix of all of those things combined. So
Absolutely, and that's something I queried you about yesterday. Whether having so many different references is helpful or harmful, and it goes to the point that you're saying, that having so many different reference points means that you don't unconsciously copy the inspirational reference that you're using, but you instead remix that into your own creation. And I think that's a great point to make, and also a great argument in why reference is so useful. And again, speaks to the difference and the usefulness of inspiration versus reference. And yeah, I think you express that perfectly.
Thank you. I think, yeah. Just to add to that a little bit, like you can maybe if you like the color palette in a certain image, you can take that color palette, and maybe you like the style of the the brushwork in another image, and you combine them together. That's kind of like the point of having like so many different influences. Yeah. So after I've done my research, the next step would be to do thumbnails. So thumbnails is basically just rough sketches, like very rough, small sketches of the composition that you're trying to do. And the reason I do them really small is that so it's less pressure for me to do them perfectly, because when I tend to like zoom in and draw really like closely on something, I get stuck on the details and I don't look at the bigger picture. So I'm not paying attention to the composition. I'm not paying attention to where the eye is directed for the audience. So I would do like a lot of like very like I would say messy, kind of like ugly drawings, just so that I have options and I can kind of like have an idea of like what I want to achieve in my final piece. So as you can see here, I've kind of marked the subject in yellow, and then I've got like gray for the background and green for like maybe like the foreground, so that I have like a clear separation of the subject matter inside my composition. And once I finish doing all of this and I find maybe 2 or 3 that I really enjoy, I'll move on and try to do like a neater version of that sketch. So I'll go through and kind of like clean it up a little bit just so I can see better what it might look like. There are a couple things that you might want to do when you're trying to kind of direct the audience's eye to your subject matter. So some of the things you can do is having like, for example, in the second and the third image, you have lines kind of like directing towards the subject, and that kind of helps to direct the eye. Another thing is also where you're placing the subject. So I've placed in all 3, they're all in the middle, but of course you can do different things with it. You can do maybe the rule of thirds, which is placing them kind of like in 1/3 position in the frame, so that your eye is kind of like it's easier for the eye to go to that position. Another thing to do is to use colors and contrast as well, which I haven't done in this one, but I'll show you what I've done in the next image with the colors. Okay,
beautiful.
So I decided to choose the third one because I really like kind of like the movement in the image, like the pose, but I decided to get rid of all of these elements in the foreground and the midground as well, because I thought they were a little bit too distracting, and I wanted the focus to be on the character and having the spotlight really be on her, and having kind of like the plants like scattered around her as she's like dancing around. So I opted for the third one, but kind of tweaked it a little bit. So this is what I came up with, and I did like 4 different color palettes. So the one on the bottom is kind of like, I guess in the morning, kind of, I wanted to show like the colorful flowers coming out and the birds flying and having like the kind of like daybreak. But I actually decided on like this one for the final, because I really wanted to show the contrast between like the dark and the cold, and then having her like dance around and then have like the plants come out of her dress, which I think is a nicer contrast compared to the one on the bottom. And by having the dark background, as I said before, it adds contrast to the image. So your eye is really drawn to the middle, which is to the character, because she's like the one that's really like the brightest point in the image. So.
And when you make these color scripts, do you tend to lean more to warm colors or cool colors, or do you try to have sort of the full spectrum, I guess, represented when you do all these tests, to sort of not leave any stone unturned, basically, while you still can do this sort of quick prototyping?
Yeah, I think that's the advantage of using digital media like Photoshop, because you are like all of these tools are available to you. You have saturation, you have color balance, you have all of these things that you can play around with. So if you you're feeling a little bit stuck, you can definitely just tweak the colors a little bit, and you can get like so many different options. And
Absolutely.
I tend to not really limit myself, especially at the beginning stages of an illustration, especially if I'm doing it for myself, or rather a very open-ended brief. Then I would
Yes,
try.
like Adobe Live.
It's a lot of fun when you get to do a project like that, because you're
Mm,
able to kind of just express yourself and just have as many options as possible. But of course, if there's like a more specific brief, then I will try to kind of narrow it down a little bit more. Yeah,
fantastic.
cool. Okay, so let me continue on and just maybe explain a little bit about what I've done with the character. Um, So again, same with illustration. I always start with a reference page, and I
Mm,
kind of like separated out the reference into three different categories. The first one would be like post references, and I was really looking at a lot of like dancing references, because I wanted the piece to be like quite dynamic. So I want her to be like mid movement. So I was looking at a lot of like dancing photographs, and also on the bottom left. I mean, this is just my own work, but of course you can have like other people's pieces just to reference off of and try to
mm,
combine them together. And then the one on the bottom right is more of like a specific reference. I was looking at the clothing, like Greek clothing.
mm.
Try to combine all of these together, and then I'll just put this particular board to the side whenever I'm designing, so that I have like a visual, like a constant visual that I can refer back to whenever I'm sketching out my characters.
And I think it's great too that you've included your own work in sort of the mood board reference stage, because it shows not only, I guess, what you aspire to create, but gives you, I guess, the confidence to know, well, this is what I've created previously. So I know I can, combine all these elements and create a effective or evocative drawing,
Hmm.
right? So that you're giving yourself a little pep talk as you're going along,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like, yes, I can do this, and this is fun.
yeah, that is true. Okay, so the initial stages of sketching, I mean, they're pretty messy, and I tend to kind of start with the face, just because I guess that's like, I feel like the character is mostly on the face for me personally.
Mm,
Once I kind of figure out what the face looks like, and then I'll try to figure out the rest of the body, the clothing, just things like that is I feel like easier for me to play with. So I'll just do a couple different iterations with slightly different features, slightly different shapes. And then once I'm kind of like happy with some of them, I'll move on and maybe do a couple different iterations of the same character. So they just like having different hairstyles, different clothing, slightly different shapes. And then again, I kind of like try to pick one that's kind of, I feel like, looks okay, and I kind of have it be a mannequin, and
mm.
just copy them and design the clothing on top, because it's just easier for me to think of them separately. I feel like sometimes it's a bit intimidating when you're trying to design everything all together. So I kind of like section it, like, okay, I'll think about the face, and then I'll think about what the clothes might look like, and then the hair, and I kind of like try to combine it all together once I have something that I feel like I like. So yes, the same with the hair. I've kind of just copied out the same face, and I just draw the hair, like different hair on top.
Fantastic. And I imagine that also speeds up the process, so you can really sort of hone in and focus on, okay, now
Mm.
it's just hair, and
Yeah,
go wild about that for an hour or so.
for sure. So let me just open this one very quickly. And so this is like the four, I guess, characters that I would say I was quite happy with. There were like more that I didn't really include, but these were the
Mm,
four that I liked. And I like different things about each of these designs. And so at the
mm,
end, I kind of combined them as well. Like there's the finished design is not in this like lineup. um, but I guess I just wanted to show kind of like my thought process behind it is like to have slightly differing shapes in each of these, even though structurally they're quite similar, and they're quite like a realistic human proportion. They're not as
mm,
exaggerated, but I still play around with kind of like the torso size, and also like the shape of the face and the hair, and think about the silhouette.
mm.
But just to note that this is not a design for animation, because when you're designing for animation, of course you want to simplify the shapes a lot more, and you're not going to get away with a
Mm.
lot of like this little like detail, like
Yeah, the tiny, tiny
like that's not
details,
gonna fly.
the folds in the
Yeah, and
clothes.
like the
Yeah.
folds in the clothes, that would be a bit too much for the animators to animate frame by frame. And so because I'm just designing this for a piece of illustration, I can be a little bit more detailed in my approach. So
Mm.
okay, so
And a quick question. Obviously, this piece and this project was created very lovingly created for us. But is this generally the approach that you take, whether it is a client project or you're drawing just something for yourself? Do you still go through all these stages for personal work?
yeah, I think so. I feel like but I feel like it kind of, that process kind of just goes on in my head
Mm,
far quicker. Like I won't be doing as neat of like a sketch for my own personal iteration. But if it's for a client, then I'll definitely clean it up a little bit more so that's easier to look at and it's easier to understand like what the goal of the design is. If I'm doing it for myself and I'm just aiming to have like a final drawing, let's say be posted on Instagram or something, or maybe it's a portfolio piece, I would kind of just rush through like those iteration part and have them be like very messy, and then just have like the final, maybe like the final drawing posted or something like that.
mm,
So it really depends on what it's going to be for. All right. So continuing on a little bit, just talking about the posing. So usually after I kind of like figure out like what I like in the design, I'll think about what pose I want to do. So this is kind of what I go through. Usually just find different poses on the internet and then try to kind of do as many as possible to see which one I like. And one thing to, let me just open this one as well. So let me just get rid of that. So these are some of the poses that I did. Some are based on reference, some are kind of just from imagination. But something
incredible.
to take note is to really look at the line of action. So what a line of action is basically like a gesture line that goes through from the top of the head to the toes. So you can see kind of like the energy of the pose. So the more curved it is, it's usually like a more kind of like exaggerated pose compared to something like this that's a little bit more like straight on. Um, Another tip that I can give in terms of like I guess posing or anatomy. I'm not really an expert in like human anatomy myself, but I think the easiest way to think about it is to look at them as like shapes.
Mm,
So I've kind of like I broke down like the torso part to be like two boxes, so like one larger box and then one smaller box for the hips, and that's just easier for me to think about, and then have them be connected at on the back by a line as like the spine,
mm,
and then also just like having the arms and the legs be like these cylinder shapes and this ball joints in between to connect the, you know, like the thighs and like this part. So it's just easier for me to think about it as like separate shapes and then have like these contour lines to help think about the perspective as well.
mm.
So that's usually my approach whenever I want to try to check if my, I guess like my anatomy is correct. um yeah.
That's fantastic. I really feel like we're getting sort of the secret hidden recipe, because you're giving us so much detail and explanation of all the decisions that you're making. It's really fascinating to see sort of this such a detailed view of your process.
Oh, thank you. And I guess another thing to add is like having things that hang off of the character. So like the hair or maybe even clothing. That's also a really nice way to add like movement
Mm,
to your piece. So it kind of like shows that okay, well maybe she's moving here, she's moving to the right, so her hair, you know, obviously goes this way, and that kind of helps to convey the movement in a static image. So all right, so let me go back to this. And yeah, so just more poses. As you can see, I've got like the line of action, I've got like the hair. But at the end, I decided to go with this pose. And the reason was because with these ones, I actually really like how like energetic they are. But I didn't like that you can't see the character's face.
yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't like this one as much, and some of these felt a little bit too static. So it's kind of like a combination of both. I wanted to like show the face, have a little bit of movement, but also show the character in a nice and pleasing way, because it's just like one illustration piece and you want to kind of like you want to be able to show off everything. So that's kind of like the consideration behind what I've done with the pose as well. Cool. All right, so I think that's pretty much it in terms of my, I guess, like my research and my iteration process. And before we jump into the demo, is there any maybe like questions or anything you want to like quickly talk about?
Yeah, chat. This is a great opportunity if you have any questions to pop them in now. I will also, before we jump to the next stage, read off some comments. So we have Jason saying yes to referencing. We have Nikki saying love seeing the color palettes, which I absolutely agree. Antonella loved the piece in the middle. I think that was when you were showing the various more detailed sketches. And Jason also agreeing that the character sketches were lovely. And Siegfried on YouTube saying sensational, which I also completely agree. And we do have our first question from Flynn here. Do you sell artwork as in prints?
I did open an imprint shop a while back, but I haven't actually updated that in a while. But other than that, I don't really usually sell prints. Maybe I should start selling prints.
I think so. I mean, judging from these comments, I think loads of people would love to have your work in their home.
Oh, thank you.
But I think just keep the comments and questions coming as we go, and I'll pop in some questions here and there. But other than that, let's dive into the sketching.
Okay, so I've already prepared the file beforehand, and I've loaded up the sketch. And I thought I would go through how I do my character, and then we can move on and how I do the background. So let me just real quick.
No worries, and let's see. Actually, a question as you're setting up, what resolution or canvas size do you usually go for your pieces?
The easiest for me whenever I'm like drawing, I guess just like sketches for myself, I just go for like A4 or A3. Like
yeah,
that's probably the easiest way to go. Or if I'm doing something landscape, then like 1920 by 1080, just because that's just like kind of the standard. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. It depends on what you're designing for. If you have like a specific brief on like, oh well, this is like the actual size, then obviously follow that sizing. But for yourself, I feel like it depends on what you're doing as well. If you're doing something for print, then maybe do something that's a bit more, that's like bigger size, so it's better quality for print. But maybe not as much if you're just doing something for fun on Instagram. So again, it depends on some the thing that you're trying to do. So yeah. All right.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna get started. So I've already loaded up the sketch here. So I've got the pose here, and I've got like another sketch on top, just like adding in like the hair and the clothing detail. I tend to do this as well, just so that I can figure out the pose first, and then I'll figure out how the clothing will drape on the character and how the hair would kind of interact with the movement as well. So it's always okay to not be able to sketch everything out all at once. Separating things out is actually better because you can think of those elements separately. So
exactly, and still sticking to that step-by-step process that you implemented from the very beginning. Now, a question here from Antonella as we are getting into it. What themes do you prefer the most to draw?
Honestly, it just like kind of depends on what my interests are. At that time, like I tend to kind of like hyperfixate on things. So like when I really enjoy like a piece of media, I tend to kind of just really enjoy drawing that particular thing. So I usually really like fantasy or maybe like sci-fi. Maybe those two things are maybe my main thing. Um, but yeah, I'm open to other things as well. I tend to draw inspiration from just like the media that I enjoy consuming.
Mm. No, absolutely. We were, I mean, as I often do, but in your little intro when you were showing us your Instagram, I did spot some Baldur's Gate
Yeah,
illustrations, and we were having a very passionate talk about that before the stream.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and I think it's always so fun when the media that we consume, or when we are so passionately influenced by something that we feel the desire to draw it. It's very exciting, and then to see other people drawing from the same cinematic universe or the same source material. It's fun to be part of that community for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like just being like a part of an online community, posting, like fan art or just, things you enjoy, like that definitely um helps me in terms of improving my art as well.
Mm,
Because sometimes you think like, oh well, I need to be doing like more original art, like for sure, but also like if you just want to do something fun that will help you improve your skills as well, I think there's no shame in doing fan art.
mm,
To kind of like help you, like aid you along in that journey, like because you're obviously like if you're drawing something you enjoy, then it's gonna be more enjoyable for you to kind of learn as well. Like you're learning anatomy, you're learning how to render, you're learning light and color, like all of those
mm.
things while you're enjoying the subject matter that you're drawing. So why not?
Absolutely. Yeah, why make it harder than it needs to be?
Yeah.
For sure. We've got Adventures from Canada on YouTube also saying hello,
Hello.
and that your creativity is beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.
Now, in our before chat, you did say that you're not playing too many games and such at the moment. But while you're sitting down and drawing, are there any podcasts that you are listening to at the moment, or shows that you have on in the background while you work?
I'm not listening to any podcasts, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually really I'm trying to get back into reading again.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I was like an avid gamer for a couple years, and I think it took like a lot of my time away, and I'm trying to like lower my dopamine levels. So I'm trying to like read. So it takes. I feel like with reading, it just takes longer for you to kind of like get that dopamine kick. So I'm trying to like
Mm.
teach myself to kind of like read more, even if it's fiction. So I'm just reading a lot of like fantasy, like romance books right now.
A bit of Sarah J. Maas.
I'm just actually starting that now.
Oh, excellent.
I recently finished Cruel Prince by Holly Black.
Ah.
I used to love like her Spiderwick books when I was little.
Mm.
I watched the movie as well, and I read. It's kind of like a young adult version of that book, but
Mm.
yeah, it was good. And yeah, I guess it's always good to kind of like read books and try to like do illustration based on it, just because I feel like when you're reading a book, the image is so vivid in your head, so it's kind of fun to try
Yes.
and translate how the characters would look into your artwork and things like that. So yeah, I'm just really enjoying doing that at the moment.
Mm.
Listening to Audible or just like reading on my Kindle. So that's what I've been up to.
Very fun. Well, you're in for a treat with those books. I haven't read The Cool Prince yet. It is on my list, but the others, I think I am on the second to latest book. So you're going to have a lot of fun with those, I'm sure.
Yep.
And I also find it so interesting when, whether it is you're sharing and looking at other people's fan art, to see how different people see the same characters.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And how sort of their own like visual or cultural bias might impact how or who they imagine the characters to be. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. it's very different from like playing a video game, or I guess watching like a TV show, because everything's already presented to you. So
Mm,
you're just kind of like experiencing something, like something that someone else has imagined for you, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, and I
mm,
do enjoy video games a lot. But I think with books, the thing about it is that you kind of experience it in your head, um, and it's just interesting, again, like you said, to see how you imagine it and how other people has imagined like the same setting and the same
mm,
characters differently, very differently from how you imagined it. So that's,
mm,
I think, a really interesting thing.
mm. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question, and it is, um, I think the most often, most common asked question, and definitely the most used tile on the Adobe Live bingo sheet,
Mm.
and that is, of course, what brush are you using,
Ah,
Yori?
yes, the brush question.
You knew it
Um,
was coming.
yeah, I'm going to talk about the brushes a little bit more later on. I might actually create a
Hmm.
brush as well, but the current brush I'm using is from Kyle brushes. So if you
Mm,
don't know how to get them, you just go to your brushes and then go to this little cogwheel, press that, and then click get more brushes, and then it'll redirect you to a page on Adobe's website that you where you can download all of those brushes for free. So that's very nice, and very convenient, because the brushes are very good quality. So
mm,
very easy to kind of just download those and then tweak them to your liking. That's exactly what I've done here as well. So yeah, I'm just gonna stop right here for the line, just quickly, to show you how I line um, my character. And the reason I line it is so that I can kind of like have the features like clearly defined for me. I'm not going to do the same for the background. I'm just going to keep it very rough. But my lining process is basically just to go through it, just one by one. And I usually have smoothing like turn up just a little bit, just so it's easier for me to
mm,
kind of make straight lines, and also have my trackpad handy so I can rotate like this and just kind of like find the best angle to kind of like make like a nice like straight line.
mm.
So I'm gonna show you a version of this line that I finished beforehand. Let me just grab, yep, and ta-da, it's finished.
Oh my goodness! Here's something we prepared earlier.
Yeah. So as you can see, like the character line is very neat, but everything else is just kind of a mess.
Mm,
Because it's just for me to kind of understand like where the composition is heading. And I'll just have like this character like be nice and neat. So I'm just gonna continue on and do the colors. Now I've done like color, like a very quick color block on this. The way to do this is to literally just like go in with like a brush and like line the inside and do like a paint bucket. But
mm-hmm.
just so we can get through it faster, I'm not gonna go through how I do the color block, because
Much appreciated.
because I feel like that would be quite simple to do.
Mm,
Um, and I'm gonna quickly do a color separation for the different elements of the characters. The reason I'm doing this is so that I can go back and change it if I need to. So
mm,
I'm gonna do a color separation for the dress. So I'm gonna do that now. So again, the way to do it is to just literally, the way I do it is I just literally color in like this. So I just line like the inside like
mm-hmm.
so.
And is this then something that you'd make into a clipping mask?
Yes.
Excellent.
So I would just clip this onto the bottom base layer by
Mm,
pressing Alt or Option on my keyboard if you have a Mac. Then you have like this kind of like sign, like this arrow down, and you click on it, and it'll
mhm,
put the color onto the base layer. And the reason for it is that so when you're coloring on this layer, is not gonna go out of bounds of this like base that you've established. So if I, for example, do like a quick like that, it's gonna
mhm.
stay within the bounds of the
Exactly.
base. So that's something that I always do whenever I'm doing color blocking, because it's just easier for me so
Mm,
to adjust later. So yeah, I'll just do like like an outline like so. Oops, sorry. And I can even just grab my paint bucket and do that. Now, as you can see, there's like a little bit of like line in like in
Mm,
between. The way to fix that is to just use this magic wand tool and then select on the outside, and now it's selecting the outside of the shape that you've done with a brush.
mhm.
And you can go select and then inverse and go back to your paint bucket tool and then fill, and now
Oh,
it's nice and perfect. So
there you
uh,
go. And would just painting with the brush over those lines once again have the same effect, or
yeah, for sure, it's just I
okay.
guess a lazier faster
Yeah.
way to do it if you want to do it
Oh,
quickly.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. For efficacy, that definitely the quicker way to do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna again fast forward and have it all finished. So this is the base layer finished. As you can see, I've separated out the hair and the dress like so. And then next, I would create another layer and then again clip it onto the layer below so that it's
Mhm.
again staying within the bounds of the base. I'll pick out, say, I don't know, like this pink, pale pink color, and just do a paint bucket and set it to multiply. I'm just kind of now I'm just going to do like the shadow layer,
Mhm.
and I'll go in with like maybe this. Oh, sorry. So go to your eraser and then just pick out a brush that you like. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just gonna quickly block out kind of like the lighting.
Mm.
Let me just pick out a different brush. Okay, so this one. It doesn't really matter actually what brush it is as long as it feels nice to you.
Mm.
Because we're gonna go back in and clean up the shadows after. So I'm just gonna quickly kind of like do a pass of the lighting. So I'm assuming that the light would come from like above. So again, determine where your light is coming from, and then just kind of like do a pass of like how that light would hit
Mm.
and affect the character.
Yeah, Flynn commenting in the chat, and I agree. I was just about to mention it that the multiply trick for doing shadows is so simple yet so effective.
For sure.
Um, I think most of the illustrators we've had on the stream have done this
I've used this technique as well.
exactly like this.
Yeah.
And we've got a question here from Jamie Garland. Welcome to the stream.
Hello.
We're choosing base colors versus the multiply layer color. Are you keeping your final idea for the background color in mind, or are they sort of separate stages?
For sure. I'm always keeping like the color palette that I've done previously in mind, but also I think that's the beauty of again using a digital media, because having the flexibility of being able to change that as you go is just so nice. Because again, I like to kind of think of my my illustration in different stages. So like now I'm just focusing on how I want the light to hit this particular character. I can go back later on after I've determined how I like the lighting to hit the character, what the shadow color would be, and I can even change the base color as well if I need to. So that's again why it's just much nicer to kind of have everything be separated out.
Yeah, it really helps you work non-destructively.
Yeah.
And sort of keep all your options open for as long as you want them. This does bring me to, I guess, the potential challenge and benefit of working digitally. Do you feel like there are any specific challenges in working digitally? Maybe that there's arguably an infinite amount of layers that you can use and settings that you can adjust. And how do you kind of navigate and work around that?
I think the main challenge for me is maybe having too many choices sometimes. So it's both like an advantage but also a disadvantage when you don't know how to kind of how to control that, because with like brushes, like you just have so many options, like you don't know what brushes are good, which ones are bad, things like that. And I feel like that's a lot of like people tend to ask like, oh, what brushes are you using, because it's just easier to like get brushes for from someone.
Mm,
But I feel like um you just have to kind of limit the amount of, for example, like with brushes, like you just have to limit the amount of brushes that you use. So I would limit myself to say like 5 brushes or 6 brushes,
mm.
max, like in a piece, and even that's like a little bit too much. But yeah, don't use like too many in one piece, otherwise it'll be much harder for you to keep it looking cohesive.
Mm.
So I guess that's probably one thing that I struggle with.
No, I think that's a universal struggle. I don't think I've ever met a artist that isn't, well, a digital artist. Sorry about that. That doesn't hoard brushes,
Oh yeah.
uh, because it's like, oh, what about this one with this thing? And some are so subject matter specific, and you could be drawing with one brush, the same brush for ages, and then suddenly um, you change one setting and then it opens a whole new, can of worms or can of brushes to try out.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that's part of the fun exploratory process of being a digital artist,
for sure.
is that you have, every brush known to man at your fingertips, but that you, through, I guess, developing your own style and your own ways of working that you enjoy, kind of hone in on maybe a set of like 10 or 15 that you use most often in your work.
For sure. So what I'm doing now is that I finished like the first shadow layer on multiply, and I'm creating another layer on multiply just to add in like darker shadows. Um,
Mm.
Again, same reason. I just want to have like the flexibility of being able to change the shadow color later on.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I just have like another layer on top just to add like certain areas where I want it to be a little bit more darker. So how are we for time?
We're going good for time, actually. It's 1:47 right now, and I'm not going to punish myself by trying to do the live maths of that on stream. So I'm going to kindly ask Flynn to let me know, and it is about 40 minutes left.
Okay.
So we got plenty of time.
Okay, sounds good.
And for anyone just joining us, we are here creating this wonderful illustration to commemorate Earth Day with Yori Narpati. And if you have any questions for us, just post them in the chat, either on Behance or on YouTube, and we will do our best to answer them.
So this process is just a lot of back and forth right now. Because I'm still trying to figure out like some of these shapes and so like how the shadows are interacting with the folds. So it's just a lot of like, again, like trial and error.
Sort of waxing and waning on having enough I guess shadow to distinguish the shape, and then enough highlights or light in general to establish the contrast.
Yeah.
And I know I'm just saying words here while you're
you're
doing
absolutely
all the work. But it is very much well, what about a little bit here, or like a pinch of salt here and some cardamom over here, to bring it back to the food analogy or metaphors that we always tend to use here on stream. I think thanks to Jeremy Lord for introducing that. And once you see, you can't unsee it, the similarities. And we have Wilson here in chat saying, wow, amazing, Yori.
Thank you.
And Alessandro agreeing, amazing indeed.
Thank you. You're all so kind.
I think it's easy to be kind when the work is this good.
Oh.
Now, we touched on it a little bit before, but I'm curious if there are any that we haven't talked about yet. But are there any specific themes or subjects you enjoy exploring in your digital illustrations specifically that you might not approach in your traditional art? If you do traditional art, I'm not quite sure.
Well, I haven't done like traditional work in a very long long time.
I take it you
Um,
don't keep a sketchbook.
I used to keep a sketchbook. That's probably the extent of traditional work that I've done is my personal
Mm.
sketchbook, which I used to keep like when I was studying animation, because it was mandatory.
Yeah.
And before that, when I was in high school as well. But now I kind of treat my iPad as my sketchbook because
Mm.
it's just like less, wasted materials,
Mhm.
just like less money on like buying expensive sketchbooks.
Yes.
um, and yeah, it's just more convenient because you have like all your tools in one place. And of course, like digital art will never replace traditional, but I
Mm.
guess it's just like a matter of preference for me, because I just enjoy having like all my tools in one place. um yeah, I feel like I can't really speak on traditional art as much because I haven't done any in a very long time, so there's that.
Well, I can say that your assessment is correct. It is a lot of stuff, a lot of space. I think you can't quite see it, but this is a long, um, I guess, row of cabinets, and most of them have either paints or sketchbooks or other art supplies in them. So I would say that traditional art does take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And I find myself being almost the opposite. So I can quite easily, I'll have a sketchbook on me almost at all times, to scribble down ideas, or just instead of taking a photo of something, I'll try to do a quick study of it instead.
Mm.
I say this like I do this every day. I do not. I want to get better at it. But trying to go back into doing more digital work, which is a whole other language. And I think it's safe to say that one isn't easier or better than the other.
No, not at
They're
all.
just two completely different approaches with some similarities, of course, in the fundamentals. But yeah.
For sure. I think the fundamentals definitely stay the same, but I think it just I think takes more patience to do traditional arts because like once you make a mistake, like there's no erasing it.
Yes.
And you have to like start over again. And again with like digital art, the convenience of just being able to hit undo and
Oh
the
yes.
mistake is fixed, which is so nice.
Mhm.
But I feel like there's like this like beautiful like tactile feeling to having like traditional art, which I enjoy looking at, but I just can't kind of bring myself to actually do it and like my
Yeah.
professional work. I do some gouache painting like for fun on my
Oh
travels,
no.
but they're very bad. And they're very small because I just kind of like to bring like tiny sketchbooks and be able to paint on them. But other than that, like that's the full extent of my traditional endeavors, like
I think
pretty
that's
much.
great.
Um,
Gouache in and of itself is also a whole. It's sort of the beast within a beast in the traditional art world. But enough about that. I just interrupted you, I think. So
oh,
please,
that's okay.
please continue.
That's okay. I was just about to say, just explain a little bit of what I'm doing. So I basically just went through my shadow layer and changed the color. As you can see, like now there's a little bit of blue down the
Yeah.
bottom. So I've locked the layer transparency. So you can click this button right here. It'll lock it, and I can just go through with like I've used here like a fluffy like soft brush, and I can just like pick out like whatever color I want to kind of like help create a bit of depth. So if I want to darken like the bottom half of the hair, and that just very 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 quickly kind of like creates a little bit more depth in the shadow.
Amazing. And I think it's worthwhile noting that yes, it is the shadow, but I don't think we see any shade of black anywhere. And I think that's such a fun element of your work, that I see that it's always so full of color, and kind of both realistic and magical choices, I suppose, in the colors that you use.
Thank you. I tend to avoid using gray for shadow just because it usually really dulls my drawing. So I tend to pick out like just more vibrant colors for the shadow. So I'm just gonna quickly now create a new layer on top of my lines. And what I'm trying to do is I'm going to actually like render out this image on top of the lines because I want it to have like a more painterly look. instead of having like the lines be like the main thing that's holding the shape together. So I'm gonna go in with maybe this brush. Yeah. And I'm just gonna like go in and paint, just like add in like more details.
Got Jason here saying, always a pleasure to see how the artwork comes together, or to see the artwork coming together. So satisfying.
Thank you.
I agree. No, I feel watching all these streams with creatives creating wonderful pieces, I do have to stop myself from thinking that I'm doing the work as well, because I feel so, a part of the process when I'm, talking.
But you are.
To you. True, to a very small extent, I would say, but it's like, yes, we created this when I've just sat here and asked silly questions for a handful
Oh no, not at all. You've been wonderful.
Oh, thank you very much.
So sometimes what I like to do as well is I would grab my lasso tool and just kind of like block out shapes like that. And grab like a textured brush, go into kind of like quickly block the shadows like that. It just kind of adds like a nice crisp line in the render.
Yeah, kind of imitates in a way what dry brushing would do.
Yeah.
But you'd have, a crisp edge on one side and maybe some sort of smudgy, scratchy details on the other, which is a gorgeous effect. And also one typically found with gouache paintings as well. And if I were to pick any traditional media that I feel sort of reminds me of your work the most, it would definitely have to be gouache.
Gouache.
For sure, yeah. Just in the way that you block out your colors and your light, and your approach of sort of layering in each stage and stuff, it definitely aligns with the gouache method.
Maybe that's why I tend to like go for gouache whenever I like do try to do any traditional work. Just because I feel like it's a bit more forgiving than say like I don't know, like watercolor or like poster paint. I don't know what that's called.
Yeah, acrylic.
Acrylics, yeah. Because they dry very, very quickly, so you're not able to kind of like think about what you want to do with it before it just like quickly dries. But with gouache, like it's very easy to layer.
Yeah, and I love that it's so opaque. So if you make a mistake, you can
just cover it up,
and continue covering up till you're happy with the piece.
Exactly. So I'm just continuing doing that with the lasso, just because I feel like it's easier for me to kind of quickly get the shadows, like those shadows, like in.
Yeah, because you don't have to worry about, I guess, casting shadows outside of the lines, similar to coloring outside of the lines, and you can be a bit more playful with it. And especially with the section that you did just now, you get these really strong and nice contrasting sort of planes of like shape planes, I guess, of the hair, of the structure, that you could still, get without using the lasso tool.
For sure.
But it just is very quick and effective in this way.
Yeah, it just speeds up the process because I'm gonna be going back in with my brush and just like cleaning everything out. Like usually this particular process would take me longer than say like a line, like a drawing, because I want it to be a little bit more painterly to match the background. So that's why I'm kind of being a little bit more, I guess, like free with it, because I want to kind of capture like that brush like painterly effect a little bit more. So I'm just gonna go back now to my brush.
And when you're, adding the texture and the painterly effects, or just, coloring in and making shadows in general, do you pay much attention to the size of the brush that you're using? Because obviously that will impact the size of the texture
For sure.
that you're adding, and that could impact on the sense of scale
Mm.
of the piece.
It's a very good question. I think, well, not question, like statement, I guess,
Mm.
because I definitely like constantly adjust my brush, as you can see. Like whenever I'm trying to do like a more detailed section, I'll make it smaller. And even if I feel like, oh, maybe like that particular texture is a little bit too big, I can just go to my brush settings, and then just go to texture, and then like just slide this scale
Mm.
to the left, and that will make the texture just a little bit more smaller, so it looks a bit more fine. So, and I'm just gonna have to ask again, how are we for time, so that maybe
Yeah,
I know if I need to move on to the
exactly. I anticipated this, so I have asked Flynn how much time we've got left. I would say between 20 to 30 minutes, 25 to be
Okay.
exactly
Well,
correct.
I think
So,
it might be a good time to move on and do
yes.
the background, because I
Mhm.
think that's an okay place for me to kind of leave it right now, and I'm gonna, I
Hmm.
guess, and ta-da! It's a very different color.
Wow.
I know, but
Amazing.
this is kind of like the final like color I decided on. It's the same process, just going through like painting in each detail, and I obviously adjusted the color so it's a lot brighter and pinker
Mm.
than the one that I was painting. But it's the same process. So I'm just gonna go now and start with the base. So before I do that, I'm gonna quickly just open up my color key that I did. Give me a second. Okay.
I am absolutely mesmerized by the hair that you painted in. It is gorgeous.
Thank you. Okay, so this is where this comes in. I'm gonna like do a crop so it's easier for me to look at and reference. And I'm gonna have this color key here at all
Oh,
times,
wow.
because I'm gonna have to reference it in terms of the color. That's why I've kind of done that beforehand.
Hmm. And
So
when you cropped in your image, I've seen something I haven't seen before. Is it just that you zoomed in on that area specifically and then made the window
I
smaller?
just use this rectangle, like
Hmm.
selected it, and then go to image and then crop. So it'll just crop it to
Ah,
that size. So it's
there you
easier for me
go.
to look at. I probably won't save it because I still want to keep the other colors, but it's
Yes.
just for me to look at. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with the background. Okay, so I'm just gonna place the character on top. Um, And I'm just going to quickly now kind of map out the colors that I see in my rough. So I'm going to use a soft round brush because it's just the easier and the less laggy of the brushes that I have. And I'm just going to pick out. So I see that the top is just a little bit darker than the base color. So I'm just going to like map that out a little bit. Brush that in. Have it lighter near the character, and then have kind of like the nice green color around her. So this is just to help me kind of blend as I go.
Mm. And again, using that color blocking in method, and sort of starting big and simple, and
Yeah,
then sort of working the
it's just
specific
yeah,
details as you go along.
it's just less daunting for me.
Mm.
And then I'm gonna go now and try to kind of do that bottom area. So I'm gonna pick out. Let's see. I usually like to pick out like a nice soft brush, but with a little bit of texture. So I'm gonna try this one. Okay, this one's okay.
Very nice.
So I've done this on a separate layer so that I can, again, just like erase it if I need to, or change it. But the purpose of this is to just kind of block out the shape very roughly now. again, just like focusing on how I want the lighting to look like. So I want it to be like almost like a spotlight, as if she's dancing on stage. So that's why I have like this very like um, obvious kind of like spotlight shape around.
Yeah, giving main character energy for
Yeah.
sure. The prima ballerina of the performance.
So I like to just use one brush initially, and then I'll try to add in more texture. That's why I like to use like a slightly textured brush, something that's still quite soft. So it's easy for me to kind of blend the colors.
And add in some transfer on the brush as well, I can imagine.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is like I just have my other hand on Alt or Option, because I'm constantly just like picking out colors. I'm just constantly changing to this eyedropper. So I would pick out color and just do a couple strokes, pick out another color, and so on and so forth. Um, so it's just easier for me to blend everything together.
We got Halinda in the chat saying this looks amazing.
Thank you.
And I agree. I think some of the pink actually from this piece has seeped into my into my video stream, because I'm noticing that my light that I have on has become a lot stronger. So the sun outside must have gone behind the clouds, which I'm not complaining. Pink is a wonderful color, so I'm living in this world that you're creating. Now, would you say that pink, or if you have another one, of course, is a color that you use a lot in your work, or that you're drawn to as a sort of a highlight or subject matter color, or does it really depend from piece to piece?
It really does depend. I think I don't have like a particular like preference to color, I guess. I think whatever I feel like is pleasing to the eye in terms of like the combination, I would go for. Yeah. So again, just like trying to use like different textures. So I'm using here like a spatter brush. So it's basically just like a whole bunch of like tiny dots to kind of create, because the idea is to have the plants like radiate out of her. So you want to kind of like create that effect.
Yeah, she's spring incarnate, spreading flowers and joy everywhere.
Yes.
And just a reminder, as we are slowly approaching the end of the stream, if you have any questions, additional questions about Yori's process, or the work that she has done for TV or otherwise, let us know in the chat, and we'll ask them.
Okay.
And here we go, Jamie. Perfect. How do you keep your colors from becoming too muddy? It's a very good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I usually stick to, I guess, like the color palette that I've already established, and that really helps me to kind of like stay focused on not blending too much. Otherwise, it might look muddy. So I guess that's kind of what I would say, and also not to pick like too many colors. Like here, I guess I've picked out like the main would be like this yellowy, like green, the pink, and also the blue, and just those three colors is like the main thing. But of course, there's a lot of like in betweens. Yeah, so just stick to like a quite simple color palette, and I feel like that would help. So continuing on, I've finished kind of like the base, and I'm gonna go ahead and add in kind of like the details. So I've got like the stars at the top, so I'm gonna add that in. I've already got like a brush for it, but I'm not gonna show you how to do this one. I might show how to do like a different brush later on. So this is basically just like a round shape, like with a scatter. And I'll just add in like a little bit of a haze or like a glow top for the stars. I'm gonna choose like this is like a noise brush that I'm using. So
the starry sky in what, 2 clicks and swipe. Fantastic.
We're adding that in and also just adjusting the opacity so it's not too overpowering. Sometimes I would go in with an eraser as well with a soft brush and oops, and just kind of like erasing bits that might be a bit too much.
Mm.
Okay, and I'm also going to add in just like a little bit of like a glow. Sorry, that's a bit much. I'm gonna change that to a. I like to play around with the layer. What is it? The
Adjustments, I think.
Yeah, layer adjustment as well, because it just kind of sometimes you can come up with like some interesting effects.
Oh, yes.
So this one I do like how it's kind of creating like that kind of like greenish, brownish kind of glow.
Mm.
I'm gonna again lower the opacity. And I guess once I'm kind of like happy with the base and it kind of looks like my reference, I
Yeah.
can move on and add in my details. So I'll go in again to a separate layer and grab like I guess a more detailed brush. So this is kind of like again just like a scatter brush.
Mm.
It's like this shape, but like scatter on scatter. So just have like a little bit of scattering and shape dynamics. And I'm gonna use this to mainly paint the foliage. And the main goal right now is to kind of blend her dress
Mm.
to the background because that's what we want. Like, because the effect is to kind of like have her dress transform into like the landscape.
Yes.
So
very sort of Cinderella transformation or Sailor Moon transformation sequence that we're seeing here.
again, keeping in mind, I guess like the movement of the piece. So just having everything, just have your strokes follow this round shape so that everything feels kind of like in a kind of like that round movement.
Mm. Yeah, creating that consistency and flow in motion. That is gorgeous. Now, I know that this was based in Greek mythology. Is that the mythos that you most often reference from, or do you go a bit across all the different mythoses? Mythos?
I think maybe my love of like Greek stories came from like I guess like one of the first like book series I read was Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan, like a
Yes.
long time ago. I talked about this like multiple times on my other streams on my Adobe Max as well. But maybe that's why. But I do enjoy like Egyptian mythology as well. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a good story.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's plenty of good stories out there. You mentioned that you do illustrate for books earlier on. Have you ever considered creating your own stories and illustrating them as well?
That would be a dream come true. um, I I'm not really great at writing. I think because I'm more of a visual person, so I tend to think of stories in a visual way. So maybe like a comic book or something. That would
Yeah,
be
graphic
something that's like
novel.
yeah, that would be something that's fun to play with. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do more book illustrations in the future if that if the opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely. Well, we're manifesting this now, everyone, for Yori to get a graphic novel book deal and more book projects, because I think the playfulness in your work and your sensibility to color and just pure joy, honestly, if you ask me, is perfectly suited for books, whether they be children's books or otherwise. Now, a quick heads up on time. We do have 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not a lot of time.
No, it does fly when we're having as much fun. as we are
Okay, let
today.
me just quickly, I guess, show like the finished version of it. So that's kind of where it's at. Now I'm gonna just add in just a little bit on top, which is just like some elements to help kind of like aid in the movement.
Mm.
So that's kind of the last thing to add. Okay. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
just gonna
is.
quickly show how
Mhm.
I do like one of my brushes, because that might be interesting to, I
Oh,
guess, see.
absolutely. Yeah. We definitely
Um,
have time for that.
okay. So I would just go literally just create like a very messy, oops, like some leaf shapes.
Oh, wow. Chat, you didn't hear this, but I think I figured out why the sun is behind the clouds because I just heard some incredible thunderstorming
Oh, I heard that through the
outside.
stream. I can hear
Oh,
that.
really? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
So I would just go like that, and of course I'll make it nicer if I'm actually doing like a proper brush. But
Yeah, with
um,
more time, yes.
the the point is to just kind of create that shape, and then you play around with the settings. So I usually add in like shape dynamics. So
Mm.
turn on size jitter and then some scattering, and click on both axes. Make sure that's on pen pressure. So is literally just like me playing around with like these settings.
Mhm.
It's too bad we don't have enough time to like actually do this properly.
That's
But
right. This means you have to come back.
oh god, okay. This probably still looks pretty horrible, but the point is that you can very easily just like create like foliage brushes, and this is
Mm.
one that I've made. Oh, sorry about that. I made beforehand, that I'm going to use for this piece. So it's basically to just create something like this. So just quickly create a shape, and then you can press edit and then define brush preset and change the settings. And I'm just going to show you how to very quickly use that to create like dynamic movement. So I would usually separate out into like a foreground leaf and the background as well, just
Mhm.
so you can adjust them. So I'm just gonna do like a quick pass with darker. Oops. Takes a couple tries,
Mm.
but the point is you can very quickly create like a dynamic kind of like movement there,
Mm.
and you can use like the work tool to adjust.
That's right. That's really effective.
Yeah, very quickly create that movement, and then you can also do like a blur effect, so like a motion blur.
Yes.
Just
Have
like,
some actual wind in the piece.
yeah, so adjust that, and then create another layer for the leaves in the background. So oops, make it smaller obviously,
Mm.
and
Already, just with having them be two different colors,
yeah.
and corresponding to the colors that we see on the ground, it's amazing how you've so easily created so much depth and
Hmm.
movement.
And also just having it locked, and then um just quickly adding in a little bit of shadow in that also
Mm.
really helps, just to create a little bit of like depth in the leaves,
I
like
feel I'm
so.
whisked away.
Yeah. And then I'm just gonna add in very quickly some birds as well, which I've also prepared a brush for this. um so an interesting thing about it is also you can adjust the angle of your brush here,
Mm-hmm.
as you can see what I'm doing. So if I just like kind of do that, it'll do like a stamp. of the birds.
Aha.
But you can adjust it by kind of like angling it up. So if you want to have the birds kind of like go up, you can do that, and then you angle it down, and uh, just like so. It just kind of helps you to control like the angle of the brush that you're using.
Amazing. So many tricks in so short a time. That is fantastic. And just a quick heads up that we have 5 minutes left,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately.
All right.
If there's
we finish
anything
up?
major that you wanna show us before we have to leave.
Okay, so I'm just gonna show you. This is kind of like the finished piece. Again, using that same method, just having it blur a little bit. And then the last thing is I usually like to add in like a noise effect at the very end. So I would flatten everything. And then, all right, just give me a second. So I'll just group that, do duplicate, and then I'll just merge that group. Now it's just like one image. Everything's merged together, and then I can just go to filter and then noise, and add a little bit of noise here. Oops, not too much. And I guess the purpose of this is to kind of like marinate everything together, just because I've used like so many different brushes throughout my process. Hopefully, by doing that, it'll kind of help to put everything together. So maybe just add a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
Just a smidge.
Yeah.
And then also sometimes I like to add in like what's called a chromatic aberration. I've talked about this in my previous streams as well. It's basically like imperfection in a photograph, so all like the colors doesn't line up properly, but I feel like it does create like a nice effect. So what I've done here, I've just kind of moved the red color just off by a little bit, and you can see it when I really zoom in. It's just like a very slight effect, but it just makes the piece looks more finished. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it look absolutely stunning.
And yeah, that's the finished piece. I've also done just a little bit of, let's go through them real quick. I've done some curve adjustments, added like a vivid light. So this is just like a light brush over the character, and then I changed it to vivid light, so it kind of spotlights the character a little bit more. That's like a glow, and a little bit of hue saturation, and we're done.
Amazing. Let's pop that in full screen for a couple of seconds, so the chat can see the final piece. Absolutely gorgeous. I love that.
Thank you.
The movement, the colors, the story. I mean, I could compliment this till the cows come home. But unfortunately, that does bring us to time. Before we head off, Yori, where can people find more of your work online? What usernames do you go by?
Oh, just my name, Yori Narpati, both on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, that's basically it.
Fantastic. Now, everyone, we do have another stream coming up tomorrow with, let me not blank on the name, with Annika Agarwal. Thank you so much, Brain. Doing graphic design, I believe, or graphic illustration. Flynn will correct me in the chat for me in a couple of seconds. But happening tomorrow. At our usual time, Adobe Express, of course. I knew I was forgetting something. So tune in for that. That stream should be scheduled so you can add it to your calendars and follow along with us then tomorrow. But it has been wonderful. I'm so glad we got to do the stream, that it worked. And I've had so much fun, and I can't wait for you to come back on the stream again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. And yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow. I'll give it a watch as well.
Oh, thank you so much. We'll love to see you in the chat. That's it from us, everyone, for today at least. Have a wonderful day, and catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye now.